Hey guys, in this thread, Anthony had said to post stories from your childhood that were kind of fucked up, and I had alluded to a story I'd wrote about the meanest thing I had ever done. But instead of just posting that, I'm gonna read it, and you know, I realize that it's bad that I'm sitting in front of a window, but my webcam doesn't really work unless I'm sitting in front of a window. Remember when I said it was shitty? Well, here's your example. But anyway, okay, so here's my story. Hooray! I joined the Girl Scouts when I was 6 because my friends Amber and Sarah were in it. I stayed in the Girl Scouts until I was 10 because I wanted to tease the special education girl. Her name was Betsy, and she looked like it. She had blonde hair that never seemed washed. It was flimsy and hung off her scalp in clumps. She always wore pastel-colored clothing, maybe because she had dandruff, or maybe because they don't make t-shirts with Disney characters on them in darker colors. Her lips and teeth seemed as though she only ate brightly colored popsicles. When she sat in the circle on our personal cow-printed mats that we sewed over a large piece of foam, she tucked her knees under her shirt and rocked back and forth as she sucked on her first 2 fingers. She never took those fingers out of her mouth. When she laughed, she'd bite down on them to prevent them from slipping out. I thought of all of the germs transferred onto her fingers, and then I thought of every piece of furniture and every doorknob she may have touched. I felt like I was trapped in a world made of her saliva. The possible horror of leaning against a table and then removing my arm to find a gob of sticky clear goo still connecting me to the surface of the table made it difficult for me to breathe. Everyone was so nice to her. They were nicer to her than they were to anyone else. They asked if she needed help with her projects, and they smiled at her when she walked in the room. This struck me as unfair. If we were told to be honest and fair, then why did we have to pretend to be nice to someone we didn't like, and even go so far as to treat her better than the others? I wanted to treat her how I felt she deserved to be treated. She needed to know that I was better than her. It's not as though I was a stickler for the Girl Scout rules. When we said, "I promise to serve God and my country," I replaced God with the Power Rangers and said it louder than everyone else. As I got older, sometimes I would mix it up by saying, "Your mom." We started going on camping trips when I was 8. We went to an official Girl Scout camping site by the Potomac River called Camp Conowingo. It was surrounded by tall trees with a large fire pit in the center. We stayed in small wooden cabins with 4 cots in each. Occasionally a mouse would sneak into one of the cabins, and we would hear loud shrieks and several pairs of feet running towards the other cabins in the middle of the night. My father always chaperoned, as the only male on the trip. I enjoyed having him there because it made me feel tougher to have a dad with me instead of a mom. My mom would never come camping anyway. She always preferred to stay in a nice hotel. My dad enjoyed the trips because after everyone went to bed, he made himself a fire and drank red wine until late at night. Sometimes I sat out there with him. I felt important because I got to stay up later than the other scouts. I told him about Betsy and asked him if he noticed the same things that I noticed. He laughed and agreed, and I felt encouraged. He occasionally joined in and mocked her mother, who also accompanied the troop on these trips. She was enthusiastic about everything, from taking a nature walk to washing dishes. She expressed her excitement through songs, accompanied by loud clapping to her own beat. Betsy's mom wouldn't shut up this morning, I told him. She kept singing about making pancakes. I know, I saw your face. I had to turn away so I wouldn't start laughing. Everything doesn't have to be a stupid song. Maybe she doesn't realize she's not in a musical. Yeah, or on an episode of Barney. And if Betsy wasn't so retarded, she probably wouldn't have to act like that. She doesn't get that the rest of you don't need to be treated like babies. If she starts singing when we go canoeing, I'm going to push her in the water. Get her before she starts going through the song list from Showboat. I'll have to kill her. If you have to, you have to. Earlier that year, I had first learned the word fuck, and I could never get the phrase grow the fuck up out of my head. I was afraid of saying it out loud by accident, but I said it around Amber and Sarah to make them gasp and then laugh. They were easy to make laugh, and I clung to them for this purpose. I met them in first grade, but they were friends in kindergarten. When we had to pick partners, they chose each other, and I was stuck looking for whoever else was unfortunate enough not to have a mutual best friend. More often than not, this person was Betsy. I spoke to her as little as possible to discourage her from thinking we might be friends. I found a miniature Barbie on the ground and picked it up. "What's that?" asked Betsy. "Here, you can have it," I said, throwing the doll in her direction. She was so happy, and it was all my fault. That afternoon she left the doll on a picnic table. I painted over its face with my blue nail polish. When she saw the doll, she picked it up and cried. She cradled the doll and wept as though she had just found her child lying dead in the street. "Look at her, she's such a baby," I said to my dad. "Did you do that?" he asked me, with his eyes wide open, in a more serious tone than usual. "Yeah," I casually replied. "God damn it." I sat down at that same picnic table and laughed. Betsy's mom approached me. "Did you do that?" "No." My dad didn't say anything, but the way he picked at the wooden table with his fingernails made him seem nervous. I thought it was in bad taste for a mother to defend her own child while arguing against someone else's. I didn't think it was any of her business. I was the one who found the doll anyway. I was Betsy's partner again the next day. She was still carrying around the blue Barbie. We were collecting different sizes of twigs and sticks. I took the doll from her, ripped off the head, and threw both pieces into the river. Betsy screamed. I swiftly walked back to the campsite and sat down by the fire pit on a log next to my dad. We watched Betsy run into her mom's arms, crying. I folded my arms and glared at the duo. I was just angry, not amused anymore. My dad looked over at me. "God damn it," he said, throwing the sticks he was holding to build a fire to the ground. "You better quit doing this shit, or you'll be sitting by yourself in the cabin for the rest of the weekend." He whispered and put his face right in front of mine so no one else could hear. He would never let anyone else hear him get angry or curse at his child, for fear of ruining his fun-loving, goofy reputation. He needed to be seen as a cool dad, and at that point, I needed him to be that way too. But when his breath hit my face as he whispered at me, I only wanted to punch him in the mouth and to tell everyone that I hated him. But I said nothing. Later, when I caught Betsy's eye, I widely opened my eyes and stared at her. When I was close enough to her, I whispered, "You're going to die." She covered her ears with her hands and shook her head. I laughed quietly to myself. My dad witnessed our encounter and tried to get me away from the group by pulling my hair. He didn't think anyone was looking, but the harder he pulled, the more girls there were that glanced over at him and then quickly diverted their gaze back. I knew he would end up letting go before he actually ripped hair out of my scalp, because that would be impossible not to notice. So I just took deep breaths and withstood the pain. I developed a talent for blocking out any pain or anything else that was going on by counting. I counted how many seconds each of my deep breaths were, and I counted the beats in my pulse. Whenever someone was yelling at me or giving me some kind of instruction, I could completely tune out, or at least look like I was tuning out. My eyes gave the impression of being totally glazed over, so anyone who was trying to tell me what to do would know that they were never able to get through to me. However, on the inside, I repeated, "Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," and so on to myself. Sometimes my heart felt like it was racing, and I would secretly put my finger on my wrist and count my pulse while looking down at my watch. It became a constant habit, but it increased if I started to panic. I grabbed my dad's hand on my hair and peeled his fingers off. I looked behind me at him, and he mouthed, "Stop." I rolled my eyes and turned back around. Later, I told some of the rest of the troop about how I whispered to Betsy that she was going to die. "You should just leave her alone," someone said. "She's so fucking annoying," I replied. "Oh, she's nice," another girl said. I looked over at Amber and Sarah for support. I had made fun of her to them before, and they had laughed. They understood where I was coming from. "I have no problem with her," Amber said. "What? Yes, you do." Amber shrugged. "She's not that bad." "Yeah, she's okay," agreed Sarah. I looked down at my watch. I counted 110 beats in 60 seconds. I wondered if I could have a heart attack. "Whatever," I responded. I remained silent for the remainder of the evening. I knew everyone was lying. Amber and Sarah just wanted to look good in front of the other girls. Everyone wanted to look good in front of everyone else. They thought they were being impressive by appearing to be the bigger person. I was not impressed. Some of them were the same girls who years later would write fake love letters to a fat girl and stick them in her locker and then laugh when she read them. Betsy remained in the troupe, and her mother continued to chaperone the trips. After that last camping trip when I was 8, my dad came on one more trip before I stopped asking him to come along. I felt much freer and didn't check my pulse nearly as much. I could accidentally push Betsy over a log or hit her with a stick without anyone watching my every move. I continued to mock her and her mom to Sarah and Amber. They laughed every time. By the time I was 10, most of the other girls my age had quit the Girl Scouts, so I followed them. So that's the story. At the end. I thought something was going to happen. There we go. That's right. Okay. So hopefully I don't regret reading this, and you guys don't decide to, like, judge every aspect of my personality based on that, but, you know, it's out there now, so, ta-da! Oh, wait, one more thing. Oh. Okay.